Cryptocurrency lender BlockFi has filed for bankruptcy. It comes just weeks after the collapse of FTX, one of the world's largest cryptocurrency exchanges. In its court filing, BlockFi listed FTX as its second largest creditor. Here to discuss is Sultan Meghji. He's a former Chief Innovation Officer at the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation and a professor at Duke University. Professor, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
So can you explain to our audience why BlockFi filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy and how it relates to the fall of FTX?
Absolutely. So about 6 months ago, FTX came in to rescue BlockFi because they had lost a bunch of money when another crypto firm called Three Arrows Capital went under, and the owners and leaders of that organization are kind of at large running around Southeast Asia somewhere. And so FTX did this for BlockFi, did this for a number of other companies where it came in and basically said, we will back you so that you don't go under. And one of the bigger fallouts of FTX, now that FTX itself is, going under and has somewhere, in the many billions of dollars of creditors' money that they have to return, now all of a sudden you see these ripples, and BlockFi is one of them, where BlockFi is now going to go under.
You got to love this. One incredibly unstable entity shoring up another incredibly unstable entity, like building on sand. So then what does this mean for BlockFi's creditors, customers?
It's a great question. Chapter 11 is an American legal distinction. And so for FTX US, as well as BlockFi's American operations, this, it presents some degree of a legal structure so that people can get their money back. The problem is that FTX is over 130 entities all over the world, some of which don't have to follow US law. And so we have a number of organizations that are fighting over a very small amount of money. I would be very surprised if everyone who had money in FTX or in BlockFi, frankly, would get all of their money back.
So BlockFi is also suing a holding company for Sam Bankman-Fried. What can you tell us about this?
Yeah, so it's a company called Emergent Fidelity, and it's a holding company that owns, amongst other things, Sam's investments in a company called Robinhood, which I'm sure we've all heard of. So he has a significant percentage of Robinhood, and that seems to be really the only asset that is inside the United States that anybody can get a hold of easily. And so this is the first of what will be many organizations, entities, individual creditors trying to get access to that many hundreds of millions of dollars in Robinhood.
I'm going to be mildly snarky here, so I'll just warn you. But it strikes me as kind of ironic that the whole thing about cryptocurrency is that it operates outside of conventional finance and banking and all that sort of stuff. But then as soon as there's a problem, it's like, we're going to file for Chapter 11. Right. I'm going straight to the bureaucracy to cover my butt. So listen, in addition to all these bankruptcies, the price of Bitcoin is down, more than 70%, but that's from the 2021 peak. It actually did a little bit of a dip and then kind of came back up, and it's been hovering around, I think, 16,000 for a while now. But what does this tell us about the overall health of cryptocurrency? I have seen people ask whether or not what we're seeing is the slow motion demise of cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
Well, I'll say if that's you being snarky, you should get a job at the FDIC. You'd fit right in. We don't know. One of the interesting things about crypto, as we call it, is it's really three different things, right? One is it's some technology. The second, it's these cryptocurrencies. And the third, it is a bunch of products and services built on top of either the tech or the currency or both. And all of that influences the price of the currency plus sentiment. We didn't shut down the New York Stock Exchange when Lehman Brothers went under in 2008. And we certainly haven't seen a decrease in that. I don't think we're going to see cryptocurrency go away. Now, some cryptocurrencies are definitely not going to survive the next few years. There are many thousands of them right now. I'm sure the big ones will. The pricing seems to be stabilizing, but, I think people said that 6 months ago, and I'm certainly not going to magic 8-ball that one.
I know this is a terrible thing for people who invested and are losing money, and people are finding themselves on the other end of lawsuits and stuff like that. But I wonder if this is kind of like a bit of a correction that's needed, because there are all these kind of wacky crypto platforms that have popped up. Maybe it's time to kind of cull the field.
There are a lot of people who feel the same way you do. And, one of the things that a lot of us have been calling for is reasonable regulation out of Washington, D.C. that creates, rules of the road. What's the speed limit? What are the stop signs, et cetera, et cetera. And so far, we haven't seen a whole lot out of either the current administration or, Congress. And I think getting some of these crazy criminals and shysters and Ponzi scheme guys, and I compare Sam to Bernie Madoff far more than anyone else. Get them out of the system, create reasonable rules of the road so that people who do want to operate in these systems operate them more like traditional finance to a degree. You might not get deposit insurance on Bitcoin, but certainly you could make people who are managing your Bitcoin on your behalf follow well-established rules that we see for either equities or for normal currency.
Sultan Meghji, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.